Welcome, and may I just say, you're looking fantastic. Welcome to the year in review video for 2025. We're going to be taking a look back at 2025 in the photography and video space, how we think it went, what's going on, all the big stories, all the big things. We're going to kind of discuss it a little bit. We're going to get into it a little bit. It's been an interesting one, for sure. I've had a lot of fun, actually, with my photography this year, and I think that's been reflected in the kinds of cameras that we've been seeing. We've seen some great kind of upgrades, great sequels, if you like, to previous cameras like the a7 IV, right? I love the Sony a7 series. I'm using the a7 IV right now. Before I used the a7 IV, I used to use the a7 III, so that's a huge one for me. The R6 III, that's a very exciting one, but we also saw a lot of kind of mid-range and, should we say, more accessible cameras this year, which is really exciting because actually I think that in a lot of ways, that is where the industry shines a little bit, right? Cameras like the Fujifilm X-E5, which I think is a wonderful camera, a really lovely camera to go out and shoot with, really reminded me why I enjoy photography. It just allows you to really focus in on the actual art of photography, and the camera can do a lot to kind of help you with that and really make sure you're getting everything in camera if that's the way you want to shoot. This is the year that I've really kind of gone in with that, getting things right in camera rather than relying so much on the edit afterwards. Actually, experimenting a little bit more with shooting in JPEG rather than always shooting a RAW. Obviously, I love shooting a RAW, but shooting in JPEG has its own, has its own benefits, has its own kind of advantages, and one of those is being more in the moment. That's something I really explored with cameras like the Fujifilm X-E5. We saw some great cameras in those kind of spaces, right? In that kind of more accessible mid-range point. Something for everyone. Whether you're a professional, a semi-pro, or an enthusiast, these cameras really offer something across the range of photographers. And we also saw that in the video space as well, with a few different cameras there. So for example, Canon brought out the C50, right, which is a lovely, more entry-level cinema camera. Now that's still capable of some really fantastic stuff, really top-level kind of video quality, but at a more accessible price point, and the camera itself feels more accessible to use. That's also true with Nikon, who brought out the ZR, which again, I loved this camera. It is just fantastic for someone like me as well, who loves to shoot run and gun, kind of handheld. Again, this is an entry-level, more accessible cinema camera, so it has a lot of the qualities you might find in a Red, for example, which is fantastic. It has a lot of qualities to get some very professional-looking video, but at a more accessible price point, and in a more accessible body as well. You don't need to build a whole rig around it. It's actually completely capable, just as it is, pretty much out of the box, ready to go. Let's dive in a little bit closer though to some of these products that we took a look at this year. Now let's start off by looking at Micro Four Thirds. Let's look at the OM System 50 to 200mm f2.8 lens. Now we saw a lot of lenses this year that I think are really interesting. Right, this is one of them. It's a reasonably small and compact and lightweight, extremely versatile option for kind of telephoto with a Micro Four Thirds slant on things. This is giving you the full frame equivalent of 100 to 400 with an f2.8 aperture, which is fantastic. I mean, what an incredible lens to go out and shoot with. In the full frame space, we also saw the Sony 400 to 800mm lens, another fantastic telephoto option for shooting all kinds of different things, right? We checked that out right towards the beginning of the year. It was very, very cold, but I had so much fun actually working with that lens. And again, it just adds to that stable of lenses that we see with Sony. Similarly, we saw the 100mm macro, the first dedicated macro lens from Sony for almost a decade, and absolutely it is a fantastic addition to the lineup. 100mm f2.8 means great for macro, but great for all kinds of other stuff as well. You can get some great separation from subject and background. You get some lovely, lovely shots with that. Sticking with Sony for a second, of course, I mentioned the Sony a7 IV. This was genuinely a fantastic upgrade to the a7 IV. This was really everything I wanted to see in the a7 V. Now, as someone who uses the a7 series day in, day out, for photography, for video, for all kinds of stuff, for all the stuff on this channel, for loads of stuff in my personal life as well, it is just such a lovely, lovely series of cameras. And the a7 V adds so much, I think, to the a7 IV, which is already one of my favorite cameras to use. From things like video performance through to image stabilization, there's so much to really, really get into with the a7 V. I was very, very pleased with what I saw from Sony there. Now, I mentioned the Fujifilm X-E5, a lovely camera that I think actually could appeal to all kinds of different people. We saw a few cameras from Fujifilm this year, right? The X-Half was a really interesting, kind of slightly more unique camera, which I think, while not for everyone, certainly offers a really interesting perspective on how you can go and take photos. And again, leans into that kind of being in the moment and actually enjoying the fun and the creativity and the love of the art of photography, which is really fun. But we also saw, and I thought this was really cool, the GFX 100 RF. This was a much more compact, actually, usable medium format camera, 100 megapixel sensor, really, really lovely all-rounder camera, which is not something you would often expect to say from a medium format camera. But actually, as a photo-first camera, this is something really, really special. I mean, you're getting unbelievable quality, whether you're shooting landscape, portrait, whatever it might be, right? Out and about. This is such a lovely camera to be using. Let's jump back over to Canon though. I mentioned about the C50, a lovely kind of entry-level cinema camera, but we also saw some other cameras from Canon as well. The R6 III is a very nice upgrade to the R6 II. The R6 III feels possibly in some ways like the hybrid camera for most people. Right? The R5 II is amazing. That obviously came out last year, but the R6 III really packs in some incredible hybrid performance, so photo and video, but a bit more of an accessible price point, again, kind of leaning into that theme that we saw that year. The R6 III is absolutely a contender for one of the better cameras that I've used this year, and a very strong showing from Canon. We also saw loads of interesting lenses from Canon. The 45mm f1.2 is a fantastic option as a slightly more accessible lens with a very fast aperture. I mean, f1.2 is fantastic, and 45mm is a great focal length to be using, just a little bit wider than 50mm. There's a lot you can do with that. A great all-rounder, with a very nice and fast aperture. Loved that lens, nice and small and compact as well, so it fits really well on cameras like the R6 III. But on top of that, Canon added a load of new lenses to their VCM range. These are the kind of hybrid lenses that all share a lot of things in common in the way they feel in the hand, the way they look, and the way they perform as well. So just to name a few of these, we've now got 20mm, 35mm, 50mm, 85mm, and all of these lenses perform so well. They look fantastic. The optical quality you're getting is amazing, and they swap in and out so easily and seamlessly that if you want to use them as part of a bigger rig, it's so easy to do that. Now, sticking with lenses for a second, Sigma have brought out so many wonderful lenses this year. It's difficult to know which ones to really hone in on in this video. The 200mm f2 was a personal highlight. I loved that lens. That was such a wonderful one to go out and use. We saw the 135mm f1.4. Again, a lovely, lovely lens to actually shoot portraits, to shoot all kinds of stuff. You can get such lovely separation with that. An upgrade to the 35mm f1.2 as well, so that's the Mark II version of that. And we saw the Sigma BF as well, which is such an interesting camera. It's something that is just so different to a lot of the cameras we see. Again, it kind of leans into that love of photography, right? The fun of it. Actually really embracing the art of it and enjoying it. That's something, again, we've seen across the industry, I think, this year. It's really been a main theme of 2025. Let's jump back over to Nikon, where, of course, we've talked about the Nikon ZR, a great cinema camera in its own right. But we also saw things like the Z5 II, an upgrade over the original Z5. Again, another camera that's a bit more accessible, a bit more kind of for everyone. Offers something whether you are looking to use it as a second camera, for example, a weekend camera, or whether you're an enthusiast and this wants to be your main camera. I think it's a great option for a lot of those different things. And something else which I found very interesting this year as well is it's not just about the cameras and the lenses. I had a lot of fun with the Manfrotto 1. That's not something that I would normally go out of my way to talk about, but this tripod was super usable. It's something I would absolutely use day in and day out for this kind of work, right? For video stuff, whether I'm doing an interview indoors, whether I'm outdoors, on location, wherever it might be. This is absolutely something I could strap to a bag and take on a hike. Very, very nice tripod to be checking out. And then on top of that, a couple of other things that I don't use as much as I'd perhaps like, but that really stood out to me this year were from DJI, where I checked out the Mavic Pro 4. That drone was such a joy to use, and the imagery I was getting from it was spectacular. I was so impressed with the video and the photos that I was able to capture with that drone. That is the drone, I think, for me. It just performed incredibly well, and for the first time, I felt that there was basically no compromise in terms of image quality. I'd be completely happy using that drone. Similarly, I also checked out the Osmo Nano from DJI. Now, I don't use action cameras very often, but this one, I just loved the way it functioned, the way it actually separates from the two parts, where you've got the kind of control unit and then the camera unit. It seems so smart. It makes me wonder why more action cameras aren't like that, actually. It's such an interesting way to kind of use things like that and actually be able to see what's going on the action camera from this other little control unit. So useful. I use that at the gym. I use it with my dog on the beach. Really, really lovely action camera to use. And that's not something that I do very often. I've never really had much purpose for an action camera, or I just don't want to make that compromise on quality. But actually with the Nano, I felt like I was getting some really good stuff. AI continues to also be at the forefront of a lot of conversations when it comes to photography and video actually as well, for sure. I mean, for this year, things have really taken off even more. Now, sometimes it's positively, sometimes it's negatively, right? On the positive side of things, we've explored things here on this YouTube channel in Lightroom and in Photoshop about how AI can help you with your photo editing, about how we can use some of the tools to help with things like masking in Lightroom, how generative fill can make it easier to remove things from photos. That's all just gotten better, more usable, and actually just speeds up your workflow, right? It's not necessarily a bad thing, but it probably needs to have some sort of line, and every person is going to have a slightly different line as to where they think it's too much, or you know, that it's just a useful tool. Some people won't want to use it at all. That's completely valid as well. It's something that I think we're all going to struggle with for a little while as to where that kind of line is. How much AI is too much AI? Like I say, for some people, any AI is too much. But in other ways, sometimes you're using AI just to actually help automate a tool. Like in Lightroom, selecting the background or selecting just a subject is now done with the help of AI to make that easier and actually quicker and better. But if you're expanding a photo or completely changing elements of a photo and using AI to actually create that, arguably it's moving more towards digital art than photography. So there's a balance to be struck there for sure. In fact, that's something that I would love to hear your opinion on down in the comments, if there's anything that you would like to share about your feelings towards AI within the photographic space. Is that something you embrace? Is it something that makes you a little bit nervous? Where's your personal kind of line as to what is too much and where you kind of would use it and wouldn't use it? That's something I'd love to know. That's super interesting, and I think that's something probably we all need to discuss, because it's not going away. That train has left the station, right? We're not putting that genie back in the bottle. That's happening. Here at Pile Cameras as well, we also opened a new store in London. Now, I say new store, we've actually moved just down the road. So we're ridiculously close to our old store. So that's great if you know where our old store was in London. It's very easy to head to the new store, which is fantastic. But it looks so nice. Oh, it really does look incredibly stylish. The new store in London is such a nice theme. The way it's been decked out. Listen, I wouldn't normally go into this much detail about how a store looks. But it just, they've nailed it. They've absolutely nailed it in terms of how that store has been laid out and actually set up. It just looks fantastic. We've had a lot of fun on the channel this year, loads of tutorials about all kinds of things, including a lot of editing as well. I love doing those editing videos, and I'm always keen to hear your ideas for any future Tutorial Tuesdays that you might want to see. We saw a great April Fool's Tutorial Tuesday documentary as well, which you can still check out on the channel as well. And of course, I'm going to link a lot of this stuff that we've talked about down in the description of this video, so you can check a lot of this out for yourself if you want to see any of that stuff. Otherwise, we're looking forward now to 2026. And I think that's going to be a really interesting year, where this year felt a little bit more focused on a bit more accessible, maybe for everyone, really for the love of photography. I'll be very keen to see what 2026 brings. There's a lot of potential for new cameras, new lenses. Like I say, the lens space is getting a little bit more interesting in terms of what we're seeing. We're seeing lenses that perhaps weren't as possible before, right? New mounts that have now had a few years to really mature are bringing new possibilities in what these lenses can actually be, which I think is really exciting, because we're all used to certain focal lengths and certain apertures. For example, 50mm f1.2, you would expect that to be one of the higher end 50mm lenses, but then Canon came out with the RF 45mm f1.2, pretty accessible price point, and not that big and heavy at all. It kind of switches things up a bit, and it becomes really interesting in terms of actually what is going to be possible and what we're going to see moving forward. So with all that said, the only thing left for me to actually say now is I hope you've had a good year, both in terms of your photography, your video, whatever it is that you create, and in terms of your personal life. I hope you've had a good year. I hope you've had something good out of the channel, whether it's tutorials, reviews, whatever it might be. I hope you've enjoyed the content we've produced. If there's something specific you'd like to see next year, let us know. We're always open to totally new ideas, as well as, of course, ideas for Tutorial Tuesday. I'll tell you what, those Tuesdays, they keep rolling round. I don't hate getting a few ideas in the comments. I don't hate that at all. I will, of course, be right there alongside you in 2026 with reviews, with tutorials, with all kinds of stuff that we'll be producing. I'm excited about it. I hope you're excited about it. I'll see you in the new year. But until then, as always, thanks for watching.